Comme vous l'avez dit, en attendant.
As you said, in the meantime, while we wait for the Prime Minister, you have only me. But Jean Castex will be coming, don't you worry. I came to bring a very warm and brief message, because above all, I shouldn't take up the Prime Minister's time. A brief testimonial, therefore, about the fundamental support lent by the Parliament and the National Assembly. And I don't know if my counterpart from the Senate, President Combon, is here, but also from the Senate, their support for AFD's actions. This year, we voted in favor of a very important law. The author of this law is here. He's the rapporteur, Hervé Verdire, MP from the Côte d'Armor. He did a wonderful job, absolutely fabulous. We have simple ideas. First of all, development aid for inclusive development must once again become what it was no longer for about 10 years now. It must become a priority in our hearts, in our minds, and also in terms of the financial resources we place at the service of this cause. We have done so the past years through a program law that is important. We significantly increase the level of action and the level of commitments by the French state for development, and we are about to attain this mythical attainment of 0.7% of GDP that we have been chasing after for years. This is the first goal which has been attained, and I think that we've all felt it in all developing countries. France is back for development. Secondly, we wanted to focus. Development aid must focus on those who need it, on the poorest countries, on countries with which we have close relations, long-standing relations, that we try to make as neo-colonial as possible. That is an effort that the French must make, and that they are accomplishing, I believe, gradually. And I believe that in that respect, this is essential. But let's turn towards the real victims. Development aid must focus on important challenges: the fight against ill treatment of children, the fight for gender equality. That is such a major problem in so many countries, and above all, now the fight against global warming in defense of humankind. It is this desire to target France's initiatives when it comes to development that was a source of inspiration for us and also for the Senate, because we took action together. And when two assemblies, politically different, come together for the same law, I think that is good, both for those for whom that initiative is intended and also for the country itself, showing that on top of differences, they can come together for a common goal. The law that we voted in favor of was unanimously adopted at the National Assembly, and it was adopted in agreement with the Senate. And this is why I'm happy to be here today. One of the important components is with the AFD. We wanted to give it the means. We are very much convinced of the interests and usefulness of this autonomous agency acting on its own initiative, on its own responsibility, and it has the means for expertise, and through whose actions the Parliament will also be present, to the presence of parliamentarians on the board, and this was the main concern for Mr. Verdire, to its participation in a supervisory commission that will be essentially devoted, led by experts, that we can have a clear vision of the actions carried out. AFD is about autonomy, liberty, attacking modern goals, and on the other hand, we have supervision, administration, that's up to the parliament, bringing together the desire for development that is put forward by the AFD and the wish to control via the parliament. Good luck. This is an alliance that will work. This is something that works. The representing the people and AFD, good future, a brilliant future to both. Thank you, Jean-Louis Bourlanges. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now speak about the diaspora. Let us welcome the Minister to the Prime Minister in charge of gender equality and diversity and equal opportunities. Please welcome Madame Elisabeth Moreno.
Merci.
Thank you so much. What energy! How can I take on after that? Madame Director General of the International Monetary Fund, Mr. Minister, ladies and gentlemen, representatives of the Diplomatic Corps, Mr. President of the Commission of Foreign Affairs at the National Assembly, ladies and gentlemen, parliamentarians, ladies and gentlemen, elected representatives, Director General of the AFD, dear Remy Rioux, dear Esther Duflo, dear Rachid Mbembe, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Yes, I had to greet everyone. I'm delighted to be here, of course, and I am relieved to see that we are so many, because we're talking about blowing 80 candles. As you said before, the AFD was founded on the 2nd of December 1941, whereas occupation was occupying a part of France. General de Gaulle from London created what became the foremost development institution in the world. By his side was one of the first people to join him in London, a companion of Jean Monnet, who worked hard to set it up, working in the shadows, a bit austere, knowledge about international experience, thanks to his experience acquired in the Society of Nations, a man who implemented the Gaullian destiny of common prosperity. I'm referring to Pierre Denis. The first headquarters of AFD was therefore in London, and then it went to Algiers before coming to Paris. The places where it intervened is first and foremost Africa from the beginning. 1 year after it was set up, a first office was opened in 1942 in Dakar, celebrating today 80 years of partnerships and very strong relations between AFD and the African continent. 80 years of fight against poverty, 80 years of development for the public sector, 80 years of support for regional integration, 80 years of concrete initiatives in agriculture, energy, digital, promoting women entrepreneurship and the youth, and so on and so forth. 80 years serving populations. The French Development Agency is at the heart of new relations between France and the African continent. The President of the Republic announced its ambitions on the 28th of November 2017 in Ouagadougou. AFD is a key driver in it. As a matter of fact, it is in the forefront. As of 2019, public development aid for the funding increased by 1 billion euros. Since 2017, AFD has invested over 5 billion euros per year on the African continent. As a result, it is present in 44 African countries, and the continent devotes 50% of its activities, accounts for 50% of its funding. The change wanted by the President of the Republic was then materialized very concretely. One of the key focuses of AFD today is to reinforce what is called non-sovereign partnerships with other partners than states, meaning the private sectors, local authorities, civil societies, and its twins, the public development banks. This is the spirit of the report by Hervé de Berville, a deputy, with us tonight, and the law on inclusive development and the fight against global inequality that the President referred to earlier. Development aid can no longer be carried out without involvement and of civil societies and entrepreneurs and the young. Another materialization of the Ouagadougou commitments, which have resounded all the way up to the summit meeting in Montpellier the 8th of September last, AFD also works for women entrepreneurship and for schooling young girls. For the Minister of Gender Equality that I am, this is an absolute priority. I know AFD's commitment for gender equality, and I thank you, dear Remy. When it comes to more funding allocated to reduce gender equality, or the support fund created to finance feminist associations in the South, AFD is a resolutely feminist agency. In 2020, two-thirds of your projects had a significant or key goal to reduce gender equality. AFD is therefore fully within the framework of our feminist diplomacy led by Jean-Yves Durlion. We had the Generation Equality Forum organized by France in June this year, and AFD was a key partner for this event. Ladies and gentlemen, despite some pessimists, Africa and France have a common identity, and this is why their destinies cannot be separated. This is why another ambition was clearly announced by the President of the Republic in Ouagadougou and Montpellier, the key role played by the diaspora. According to the OECD, the African diaspora in our country accounts for approximately 10% of the population, meaning 8 million people in France. This is a key on both sides of the Mediterranean because the diaspora are at the heart of our opening up to the world. They play a role as a guidance, ambassadors, a line between our two banks, between our languages and generations, weaving us together with a very precious thread, a thread that belongs to us, all of us, and that we must consolidate. AFD has been working on that since 2007, whilst reinforcing relations between states, diasporas, allow us to lay down the foundation of a new narrative between France and the African continent, a narrative founding on listening and dialogue through win-win partnerships, a new relationship based on trust, a strong partnership, and mutual enrichment. It is within this context that, for the first time, a head of state decided to bring together over 3,000 Africans from civil society in Montpellier on the 8th of October last to speak without filters, without taboos, and without any concessions. That summit meeting was preceded by a great dialogue that you carried out at Achille Mbembe in 12 African countries in 2021. In Montpellier, we are both there, Remy, and there we spoke, of course, about development. We heard the alarms, screams, dreams, and ambitions of the young people who were present. Like you, I also heard the desire to see AFD change its name. Maybe after 80 years down the road, it's the right time, and I think we should do so. It is within the framework of that path from Ouagadougou to Montpellier that we will soon create a House of African Worlds and the Diaspora in Paris, and we'll organize the first summit meeting of the diaspora. Yes, diaspora is an opportunity for our common future, and we absolutely need these civil societies to be awake and acting in France and on the African continent. Ladies and gentlemen, an old establishment is a wonderful institution that is resolutely turned towards the future, an institution whose noble mission was never altered by the passage of time, quite the opposite, an institution that constantly renewed itself and that never stopped innovating. An institution, and I'm deeply convinced of this, is something that we should all and are all proud about in this wonderful amphitheater. An institution which I hope is one of the greatest anniversaries this year. And I'd like to thank Rémi Guillou as well as all your teams for your commitment at every moment at the service of development everywhere, at all times, today and tomorrow. I thank you.
Merci, Madame la Ministre.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Minister. Let's welcome the Director General of the AFD, Rémi Rillet. Mr. President, Mrs. Minister, ladies and gentlemen, I had planned on giving you a long speech, but I will refrain from it to give the floor to the Prime Minister, who is going to meet us in a few minutes. But I really wanted to express myself before we close this meeting with the speech of the Prime Minister to thank you wholeheartedly, to thank you for taking part in this event. Thank you for following at a distance this event. And thanks to all who work on every day. It was said by Sarah, Audrey, Benjamin, Lucie, Adama, all our colleagues who in the field, concretely help along with these actions and have an impact on all the countries in the world. We reminded us where we come from, this curiosity, this history, African history. We exchange on this very dramatic moment. It's quite singular, and I'd like to thank you, Esther Duflo, for reminding us of the strength, on the urgency, and the necessity, the absolute necessity to bring answers on the macro scales of financing, of the micro scale as well, for projects and concrete actions. And I believe that today, through these exchanges, we managed to open a space behind this law of planning of the 4th of August, for which we could all commit with more prospects, with more mobilization, with more inspiration. We can invent words, concepts, instruments to act at scale at the necessary speed for the climate and for the common financing of with the multilateral banks. We have FDIC fund and all the partners. I think it's this hope for renewal is taking shape. Something new and useful is being born in the French policy and the European policy for development, and we can all rejoice, of that. And I can tell you that I have sense in today's discussion the three things that we need to look more in depth in the years to come, in the months to come. So first of all, take these 4 words on the side of the others very seriously. Ambassador told me that the AFD is useful because it plays in the away game, and we can make this our raison d'être to take an interest in others. And I'd like to take the message of the SDGs, its potential for innovation, its potential for standardization, for mobilization, for ramping up. This is very seriously. I think it's a very important access, and we can, bring about all the sensitiveness that is necessary, and we must consider human rights, the inclusion from the bottom up through the development actions. And one last thing, we need to go further in the solidarity investment beyond the public aid to development, whether it's the director of the IMF and the OECD. They call also to go beyond what we've done and to free up this financial help that is absolutely necessary today. Let me close by saying that we wanted to organize this event in the in the Museum of Natural History because we meet together in the heart of Paris. We wanted to have a place for the solution for sustainable development with to contribute to this agenda, which will go through the Olympic Games and the Paralympic Games of 20 2024, and it will give its whole strength to the political orientations that were touched upon today. And I will close the session before we hear from the Prime Minister. I'd like to thank you once again for your participation.
Merci Rémi.
Thank you, Rémi. Very well, Mr. Minister Elisabeth Moreno, the President Jean-Louis Bourlanges, ladies and gentlemen, members of Parliament, the Mayor of the 13th arrondissement, Mrs. President, Mrs. Laurence Sorbiana, Rémi Rioux, ladies and gentlemen. I am very happy and honored to be here physically with you tonight in this exceptional circumstances, in this place which is just as exceptional. Some 80 years ago, as you know, France was no longer France, but it was everywhere where France, free France, was fighting for reconquering its soil and its independence. Everywhere where General de Gaulle has understood that the link of our country with the rest of the world would be an indispensable aid to the freedom of France. This is the reason why he created in 1941 the Caisse Centrale of Free France that would make it possible for fighting France to hold on to financial autonomy and the capacity for management. When France was freed, men like Pierre Mendès France was aware of the fact that the victory was to be for the economies of overseas. As soon as the 1950s, this tool was used to help the processes of independence, particularly in Africa, and then the development of these young economies, and finally when they were ushered into globalization. The strength of this institution was to be able to adapt to the evolution of the world, and it came across the ages without losing sight of its reason for existing. For more than 80 years, you've helped France to keep alive way beyond the French territory and even its zone of influence the universal principles that are our very identity today. We no longer talk about assistance, but we talk about cooperation. We no longer act for others, we act together. Faced with the global challenges, be it the climate change, equality between women and men, the fight against poverty and inequalities on a world level, the AFD always preferred the sharing of common values to the dictation of a unilateral vision. From Moti to Winaka, from Tilaberi to DIFA, it's this alliance that you keep alive on a daily basis in circumstances that are more and more difficult, unfortunately. In a world where the imperial temptation is so strong that it threatens everywhere multilateralism, your action, the action of the AFD, is decisive. This model of aid to development, which thanks to you is honoring our country, is, we must say, in competition with others. I'm thinking of the ramping up, more particularly in Africa, of lenders which have much less scruples in their practice of credit, in terms of indebtedness, and are less worried about the independence of partner countries. These lenders, follow a logic of short-time profitability, which runs contrary to the interests of the countries which they pretend to help. In the face of this competition, we had to rethink our strategy and re-equip our approach. This is why, as soon as 2017, the President of the Republic impulsed a complete revitalization of our development policy in its philosophy, in its methods, as well as its means. The political project, which was translated in the planning law of August 2001 and for the fight of global inequalities, which was defended by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and I would like to salute his effort, and I'd like to pay homage to Jean-Louis Bourlanges, who is the president of the Foreign Affairs Commission, as Hervé Bervine, who was the rapporteur for this law. This law made the development a pillar, a full pillar of our foreign policy, a policy which is at the service of the development as seen by France, which defends our values and our interests, of course, but with the ambition of building true partnerships and for the long time on an equal footing. For France and for the AFD Group, solidarity is not optional from an economical point of view, but a political and moral obligation. In reality, it's the only policy which is realistic in a strong sense of the word, if only because our world is more and more interdependent. And the last illustration is the pandemic, COVID-19, which we cannot hope to eradicate for the long run if the poor countries are infected because they are not sufficiently vaccinated and treated. Immigration, which is the result of this economic, social, and political tension, are of course also global. They constitute a challenge that must be dealt with. France has chosen, by relying notably on the AFD, to act upon the sustainable causes of this immigration. It helps the more vulnerable countries in their development models for their population to live comfortably where they are. And this is the reason why, for 5 years now, education, equality between women and men, the fight for human rights have always guided the action of the AFD. Since 2017, you had a clear objective to concentrate on these objectives by giving you the means to succeed. In a world where the help for developments is a strategic purpose, nothing would have been worse than to defend principles without having the means to do so. And from that point of view, ladies and gentlemen, figures are clear, indisputable, and recognized by all. The French help has increased by 35% during the last 5 years to reach now its highest level at 12.5 billion euros. It represents, or will represent, in 2022, 0.055 of the global GDP, without 0.4 in 2007. It was 0.33% some 20 years ago. This amount will continue to increase because we have put in law the objective to reach by 2025 0.7% of our national wealth invested in development. The challenge, which is to maintain an upward path, was met, and I insist, even though even during the crisis, or as other countries chose to reduce their efforts. Thus, France is now clearly and resolutely above its partners in the OECD, which dedicates on average 0.33% of its national wealth to international solidarity. More than 4 billion euros have irrigated our action in favor of development in the course of the last 5 years, making France the fifth world lender and therefore an indisputable actor. These means, which have been increased, call upon a new discourse of the method. Thus, the planning law of the 4th of August of 2021 put inclusivity and partnership at the center of our approach. This law, and it warrants to be underlined, is the only text which was voted unanimously by the Senate and the National Assembly. It's it's in the honor of the members of Parliament to have reached a consensus when we talk about investment for France. It's together with the Parliament we have set a new strategic framework to widen the development beyond the agreements between the governments. The law talks about a concerted action which calls upon the mobilization of all the actors, collective, and the rest of the actors. In our embassy, together with the agency, we will have the duty to lead strategic action by avoiding redundancies and inconsistencies. This trust, which we put in the field, we were able to implement it with the agencies overseas. For the last 5 years, your action has undergone a new impulse with the creation of the department, including the 3 territories, including the French overseas territories and the neighboring countries. This is why over the last 5 years, the action of the AFD overseas was marked by its strong capacity to answer the exceptional circumstances that face these territories. Support the Saint-Martin after the Irma cyclone, the deployment of common initiatives in New Caledonia and in French Polynesia to face the COVID crisis. Today was the Caribbean experienced troubled times. I want to pay homage to the patient work that you have undergone through the Coron agreement, which have been signed with the collectivity, and through which you provide aid in engineering. This aid helps the communities to restructure their services, to find a budget balance, and to avail themselves once again of the capacity to invest in the services to their citizens. France was also on the first line to suspend the debt service in the most vulnerable countries, which made it possible for them to find resources to face with the crisis. In November last year, France played an important role in the adoption of a common framework for the treatment of debt for the poor countries, which was a way to find a more sustainable answer to this problem, which was done. And it was done through the common framework of the G20 and the Club of Paris. This action, we continued with it, particularly when we had the summit on the financing of the African economies, which took place mid-May of this year, particularly by getting the increase in favor of the African continent, the benefits of the drawing rights up to $650 million. We obtained of the G20 that it endorses the $100 million of the special drawing rights to the large economies to the benefit of the countries that need it the most, in particular in Africa. And we work to make make this objective more concrete in the next few months. In addition to this action on finance, France, as you know, it was strongly mobilized to provide an answer that would not be merely economic, such as the initiative taken by the agency called Health in Common illustrates it. And I'd like to remind you of the line that was always ours when it comes to the vaccines, which is a very essential topic today. In other words, we want to promote an equitable access and universal access and give by mid-2022 120 million doses of vaccine to the poor country, which makes France the third largest donor after Germany and the USA. Today, more than half of the way has been. We've gone half the way, and this is why we have encouraged the multilateral Bank of Development to sustain the financing of vaccines of the members and to help them plan for national vaccination plan. We advocate for these institutions to reinforce the health systems to prepare for the future pandemics. The fight against the climate change is the other major priorities which the AFD has set for itself. And you allow me, ladies and gentlemen, to thank very wholeheartedly Laurence Toubiana, not only for the role that she played, at the head of the executive board since July 2013, as well as Expertise France more recently, but also, as you all know, for having been the architect of the Paris Accord in 2015, which made it possible for the AFD to be at the spearhead of these programs. You also helped with the major transformation of the agency, and the government, through me, wants to thank you for the work that you've done. And finally, we wanted to put efficiency and legibility a marker of our actions. It is why we have set up a commission of evaluation of the public aid to development, which is made up of parliamentarians and recognized experts. It must shed some new light on our action. It will be independent and free to put a finger on what is not efficient, and it will be there to reinforce the trust of our citizens in the public aid of France to go beyond some preconceived ideas and to counter false information. In this, along the same lines, the state will build a database of the AFD, which will be accessible to all, which will make it possible to all citizens who see who does what with what means and where. Similarly, I'm expecting the AFD to pursue the objective of efficacy and sobriety, which was assigned to it, both in its relationship with its partners as well as its internal function, particularly as far as the durability of its financial model. These measures must go hand in hand with the means that was granted to us. Without this transparency, we will have run the risk of weakening the democratic, adhesion to our approach. This, ladies and gentlemen, this renewal of the philosophy and the means to development, which the President of the Republic recalled during the summit of Montpellier of the 8th of October, also goes through a growing room made for the partnership with all the members of the civil society, which play a major role in the field when it comes to solidarity. The law of the 4th of August 2021 allows for the doubling of funds that go through civil society and funds that are aimed at the external action of collective territorial communities. This summit of the 8th of October was of a new gender, without a head of state, without institutions. It was dedicated exclusively to the youth of Africa and France. And for the first time, hundreds of young entrepreneurs, artists, researchers, athletes, students, personalities, which are fully committed of France and Africa, got together to think about prospects and concrete actions to be taken for the renewal of the relationship between the African continent and France. This spirit of renewal, which the President of the French Republic wanted, is over to you. Is as the chairman of the board, is to be more concrete with the change of name of the agency. With this new approach, which he defined, which would be more of a partner and which would be more inclusive, the President of the French Republic wanted this new name to be found as a result of collective work, thanks to the staff of the agency, but to the representative national and international institutions, as well as the civil society of the world over. On this topic, we will meet in February 2022 at the summit between the African Union and the European Union, which will be a great time during our presidency, which will start on the 1st of January, which will make official this new name. As we have done it for 80 years with the capacity of adaptation, I know that the agency will succeed in this new mutation at the service of this wonderful ambitions. It's also up to you, dear Philip, that that you will prevail over the installation of the AFD in the Austerlitz station and all these projects. You will carry out with Rémi Rioux, the Director General of the AFD, and I'd like to pay homage to his commitments and remarkable work. This is a large-scale project, but beyond the real estate preoccupations, I see with you the opportunity to make Paris the capital for the solutions for the international development, sustainable development. So, ladies and gentlemen, 80 years, well, at the end of the day, is quite young. And there remains a lot to do. And your institution has shown that it knows how to undertake long-term policies. It should be a redundancy. This 80th birthday, you wanted it to be on the side of the others. So it's a slogan which, in line with the slogan that you embody, that of a France which carries out the value that it embodies. But it's also, it's also what's also at stake is to enrich our, look on things, to be on an equal footing with those that for which we sustain development. In a few moments, I will exchange with the minister, with the young that are committed, and I'm very happy for it, because they will be the ones who will be the main representative, but they will be the main actors of the political project that we carry together. And to this youth which is committing, I would like to say, when I meet with it in a few moments, I would like to say to them that they carry this inheritance of 80 years of the AFD and the future of France and its action of the world around next to the others. Thank you.
Merci, Monsieur le Premier ministre.